installer Drive Thru Therapy, the real sessions. Our topic tonight, it is going to be about fear of abandonment and how it interferes in these subtle ways in your everyday decision making. I think this type of fear, in general, fear is threaded into almost everything that people make decisions about all day long. Fear of this, fear of that. And at times, they find that the fears are just practical decisions that they're making. But if you really look at them and slow down a bit, you will realize that most of the time, the fears are not necessarily practical fears. They're just kind of disguised that way, but they're in fact just fears. And that's why left unchallenged, it will become a disorder known as generalized anxiety disorder or a variation of OCD or other anxiety disorders. So making sure that we confront fear is the way we help handle these situations better and cope. So the cure for that is really just to confront your fear, not to keep avoiding or making decisions consistently based off of the fear that would result in either avoidance or over confronting or, the extremes. Because that's kind of what chasing fears will do all day long. Will get you to a place of extreme, which is what these fears are. So I want you to know that most of the time, this is very much left unnoticed. The fear of abandonment is the one we're talking about, and it is usually very unnoticed by the majority of people. We don't know what it looks like on the inside of us. And if you discover how it really plays out in your daily life, you are going to be blown away, I think, because it's so subtle and we don't even think about fear of abandonment being that obvious. We only think about it in the case of relationships. Somebody leaves me, I react in an extreme way, and that's fear of abandonment. But I want you to really think that it's in almost everything that you do. I'm going to prove it to you today. You're not going to even know that this is called fear of abandonment, but the underlying issues I'm going to be talking about today are really fear of abandonment, but applied in real life, it looks like something else. But it is in fact fear of abandonment that's making us make those decisions or react in certain ways. Like I said, as in any fear, we are going to prioritize that in our mind because the chemistry is pretty loud, if you will, when it comes to fear, appropriately so. So this way, if I experience fear, I need to be able to save my life, right? So if a tiger is coming at me, I want to be able to feel fear so I can fight or flight, and I would be flighting here. But that's why we are built biologically to experience fear. However, fear or the feeling of fear is not necessarily intelligent. It doesn't necessarily have any other value if you're playing it throughout the day, every day. It doesn't have any other value that's really evident in the use of fear as a decision maker all day long. All you got to know is talk to a person who's anxious. They are making consistent decisions based off their anxiety, based off of fear. But I think it's not just an anxious person. I think it's about all of us, really. Calling the decisions that we make not fear-driven, but they're in fact fear-driven. And fear of abandonment, like I said, is one of those subtle things. And we prioritize that when we experience fear in general. We're going to prioritize that and we'll make decisions on that. Now, when I expose those things to you, I want you to make sure that you recognize them within yourself and you start to challenge them. And like I said earlier, you challenge them by confronting yourself, not the person, but confronting yourself when it comes to that fear. Sometimes it's confronting the fear. A lot of times it's confronting the fear, but the fear may not be obvious to anybody else. And I'll talk about some of those fears right now. So one of the obvious fears that people react on, but they're not thinking it's fear of abandonment, is called people pleasing. This is a very common one. I want to start off with that one. Everybody knows that one. This is the idea of really wanting to be useful to someone and wanting to be needed by someone so much that you no longer have boundaries. You just want to be pleasant to the person. And this, in fact, the underlying fear that's prompting this, that's motivating this, is going to be the fear of abandonment. If I'm not useful to this person, they'll leave me. If they're not happy with me, they'll leave me. And so you might really have difficulty in friendships, for example, when by overgiving, by kind of letting other people decide what you're going to do, where you're going to hang out, and you usually not going to prioritize what you want to do. It'll be prioritizing the needs of others. And again, this will be the overgiving part, all in an attempt to be loved or be useful or be needed by someone. So that's what people pleasing is. It's an underlying fear of abandonment. Now, the second thing I think is kind of a little more subtle. You won't think of it this way, but it is, or you might not, but you might. I don't know. Well, the second thing that we act on every day is not speaking up, and I don't mean like just fighting something, but I mean speaking up when we are wanting something or needing something, or let's say we have an opinion about something, input about something, we just won't speak up. You'll see this at work. You'll see this globally, at home, at school. You'll see this with your friendships, partners. You'll see this everywhere, where I just don't speak up and I avoid possibly difficult conversations, or I might even agree when I really don't agree with something. I just will pretend to agree. The obvious one is staying quiet. If something really bothers you, you just won't say anything about it. I mean, this is so subtle, but in fact, the not speaking up is definitely an underlying fear of abandonment that is present there. I hope that makes sense. Because I'm really thinking that if I say something and they might not like it, then they might leave me. Really, essentially, if you break it down, it's not that they're gonna be upset. What's the worst thing that can happen when a person's upset? For any human being, if my partner is upset because I said something, the worst thing that can happen to me psychologically, even though I don't admit it to myself, is if the person leaves me. So the underlying cause of almost every response that I'm talking about today, I'm telling you, if you break it down, it's gonna be like, I'm afraid that they'd leave me. I know it takes a bit to admit that. And even in the therapy room, I'm going to tell you, it's very difficult for people to admit that they have a fear of abandonment. I think definitely has a lot to do with what we might think about ourselves. Our pride maybe will not let us think that we have a fear of abandonment. So we won't make the connection, and it'll take a while to change that or do anything about it. So the more honest you are with yourself, the faster that you become honest with yourself, the more likely you'll be able to catch that and be aware of what the change needs to be. The number 3 thing that people who fear abandonment do is usually they'll be in unhealthy relationships. They'll accept unhealthy relationships. They'll accept poor treatment. Ignoring a lot of the red flags. And usually the thought behind that is like, there's something, I'd rather be with someone than be with the unknown. And what if I'm alone and I never find someone? So the idea, the underlying hidden motive here is that I will tolerate a lot of the abuse, if you will, or the maltreatment. I'll tolerate all of that. Because in fact, I'm afraid they'd leave me. Because if I had to make decisions about what the person's actually doing, I would have left already. I would have tried to protect myself. But what my brain will do instead is justify the bad behavior and keep me there. It'll keep me continuing to settle for and justify bad behavior so I can just stay in there, because to make a decision about somebody's bad behavior is really painful for me. Because I'd have to make a decision about leaving them, right? Especially when it's obvious, like there's maltreatment and there's abuse. You would think it'd be obvious, but really, if somebody stays in there, I assure you, it's not necessarily for the kids. It's not. This is the shit we tell ourselves, but it's not really why. The underlying issue is that fear of abandonment. I'm afraid to leave. I'm afraid to be alone. Okay, the number 4 thing that we will do generally every day is we will over-explain ourselves to people. And this is going to look like, pretty obvious in relationships, but the person who's doing it is not recognizing how obvious it is. But this is a person that will usually have to explain themselves quite a bit because they're so afraid of the disapproval from another person, and that they often perceive and assume that the other person will not understand them and will reject them because they're just going to be misunderstood. So what does this person consistently do is usually kind of try to justify every decision that they have by over-explaining it. They will usually seek approval before acting on something. So this is the kind of person that will call like 5,000 friends to get their opinion, and they want the approval of everybody else before like making the decisions they need to make. Or even like between you and your partner, for example, you might go and talk to them about how they need to stop cheating, for example, and they've been cheating like multiple times, and you need to go tell them, and you want to talk to them about stopping the cheating part. That's really kind of, again, you're seeking secretly approval from them before you make a decision about leaving them, because you just don't want to. You're so afraid of abandonment that you don't want to leave them. So you go and tell them, like, I need you to stop cheating. And of course, they're going to tell you a few words. And of course, because I have this fear, I will believe them in that moment. And the cycle will continue. So the fear of abandonment thing, it's a pretty large underlying cause of a lot of our decisions. You feel me? I hope you do, because I don't want it to hide from you anymore. Okay. The 5th reason why, or how it will appear in your life, how fear of abandonment will appear, is when you start hiding or changing aspects of yourself to avoid showing your authentic self, because or being vulnerable for that matter, because we're so afraid to be judged. And if they saw the real me, it just wouldn't be safe. They'd leave me. So what do? We start to hide ourselves by becoming basically what we think the other person wants to see. And we prioritize them, and we stop really taking into consideration what we're, what we want, what we need. And we stop in a lot of ways, we stop being vulnerable with another person, because that would require the taking a risk, and I might be rejected, So automatically, the person who has a fear of abandonment, very strong fear of abandonment, they will not be vulnerable. And this could look like your person that is lacking commitment. Yep. That lack of commitment business, that's usually fear of abandonment, probably some of the strongest fear of abandonment. So what do? They'll leave you before you leave them. Something like that. Or they will keep you at arm's length just so you can, so they don't have to show who they are. Or they'll, let me see. They won't tell you anything that you can use about them. Again, anything that is going to harm or hurt them, or show what they really are. They're afraid to be rejected for that. So it's kind of a very kind of thin self-esteem. And it really isn't hard to offend that person. Really isn't hard to offend that person. That person will get hurt quickly if they perceive that they're being disapproved by another. So they start to hide parts of themselves to fit what they perceive the other person desires. Okay, the sixth and final one is really about, this idea of I'm always hyper vigilant. I'm always constantly watching for someone to like when they're pulling away. I'm suspecting that at any moment a person's gonna pull away. So I always stay on alert. I always stay hyper vigilant with relationships because I assume already that they're gonna leave me, and so I often check the emotional temperature of a relationship. I'll ask if the person, are you okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Is everything okay? I consistently ask for reassurance if I'm doing that. And I'm always watching for the signs like that somebody's pulling away. I'll over interpret, texts if they're sent, and I'll perceive that the person is pulling away and that they want to leave me. And so I might either, ghost someone, or I might chase them or blow up their phone in order for me to get reassurance that they're not leaving me. So either extreme is going to be that fear of abandonment coming out. You either blow up a phone real quick, or you're like, I'm going to leave you before you leave me. That kind of thing. The ghosting idea, right? Especially not being able to confront someone when you ghost someone. I might do a whole episode on that because that's just a lot of fun, because that psychologically means a whole lot of other things. And I think we deserve to know the psychology of ghosting. We need to understand that better. Going back to fear of abandonment, basically, I want everybody to understand that when we're talking about fear of abandonment, this is also talking about, really at its core, is self-abandonment. It doesn't just make us be afraid of us being left behind by others, but in fact, this also indicates that I will self-abandon. I'll abandon my opinions, my values, my principles, my authenticity, my boundaries, my needs. I'll abandon all that in an attempt to keep someone from leaving, which is, again, the fear is so heightened in us that we just naturally react on it consistently. So the question I want you to ask yourself, really, at this point, is not necessarily about whether I'm afraid people will be leaving. That's not the case. I want you to take a closer look, a magnified look about what you will do, what you're willing to do to keep a person there, right? What you're willing to do, what you're willing to give up to keep a person there. That's the real question I want you to explore and investigate within yourself, and really investigate it. Really look at what your behaviors are doing and the underlying motive for all those kind of subtle behaviors, but they're all based off of fear. We do those things every day. I mean, who doesn't overinterpret a text or react to one, even though it's just like one word, right? Who doesn't do that in a lot of cases? So a lot of people can relate to this. The fear of abandonment that we all have, because we have to have it, or else it would be difficult to create any connection with people. Right? So without a little bit of fear of abandonment, we wouldn't be able to connect with people and have relationships. It would be tricky, but having it to an excess, right? Where it runs your freaking life. That's what we're talking about today. That's when it's really not that useful. And now it becomes about changing who I am altogether to fit and accommodate people, and to continue to live a life where I don't accept myself and I give everything away about myself in order for me to keep another. This is a sad, lonely, very lonely life. You can have a lot of people around you, but they don't really know you. They don't really know you. They only know you by your filter of fear of abandonment, and what it will show them to please them. I guess is the best way to say that. So I really want you guys to reflect on that. In a therapy room, I can't really explain how much I see this and how human it is. It's very human. And like I said, we all have it to different degrees. And the way to work on this, right, is in those same behaviors I talked about, is you becoming more consciously aware that you're doing them. So for example, if you're with your partner and the partner asks you, what movie should we see tonight? I need you to speak up and say, you know what? I want to see this movie tonight. And let them experience who you are, and finally risk, that possible rejection, because you have to ask yourself, who the heck were they loving to begin with? The version of them, that version of you that's comfortable to see, not really who you are. So show them who you are and let them deal with it. Let them choose to accept and love you or not. Both are gifts to you. Both resemble the truth, and the truth that we'd all want to know. I want to know if I'm going to be loved for who I am. It's hard. It's a hard life. I assure you, and I've seen it. It's a hard life to alter yourself so much to keep a person with you that eventually your life becomes all about the disguise that you're living, not really who you are, but the disguised version of you. The disguised version of you is what you are presenting to people. And that's what they are, I guess, enjoying about you. That's a lonely life, friends. Lonely life. I had this client one time, and I remember this client saying that they would love to travel and go see the world, but they will not be able to do that until their spouse passes. And because they were so afraid, because they know their spouse will not want to travel with them and definitely doesn't want to involve themselves in anything that this particular client likes. So the client says that when the spouse dies, I'll go ahead and travel, and I can't wait for that. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's a big decision. That's a big decision, and it's a very clear indicator that there's something wrong. But of course, the person does not see it in that moment. So I want everybody to be loved for who they are. But we'd have to take the risk. If you have fear of abandonment, you'd have to take a risk, and it would feel uncomfortable. But instead of this discomfort making you pull away and avoid confronting, I need you to go in. I need you to go in a little harder and really confront it. Whatever that needs to be confronted, confront it. And who knows? You might meet someone that just loves you for who you are and just how you are, and you would never have to hide for the rest of your life. As I've heard it before, to be loved is to be seen. And so, what a way to live your life, to take that risk. To take that risk and let people decide. The decision doesn't reflect your value. It reflects just their preference. And that is what we need to make sure that we remember in the moment. It is their preference, their gauge, their whatever the heck it is. Not necessarily a reflection of my value and how worthy I am. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, this helped you tonight in some way. And that I want you to make fear of abandonment as just a natural thing that we all feel. It's an underlying fear that humans have. And I want you to investigate what it will do in your life. What kind of decisions, everyday decisions that it'll make in your life. What will when you go out for lunch with your friends, do you happen to verbalize where you want to go? Or do you just sometimes, or do you most of the time just avoid making a suggestion? With your partner, do you pick the vacation that you would like to take a trip to, or does that partner always have to pick the vacation location, right? What do you keep giving away? Do you give away your time at the gym because your spouse is jealous, doesn't want you to go to the gym? Do you give up that time at the gym? Do you give up your time with your friends because your spouse may not like it and may feel jealous or insecure about it? And so you just avoid and let go of those friends and just to avoid conflict. But in fact, not just avoiding conflict, but it's the underlying fear represented of fear of abandonment. Right in there. I'll just go ahead and let go of all my friends. This I hear over and over again that we do. Let go of all my friends in order for me to keep this person happy and for them not to leave. And boy, oh boy, can one relate. So just know that we are able to work on it, and it does get better with time. And you're just going to have to really be good at risk taking and self-acceptance to help yourself heal this. Consistently showing people the things you're afraid to show, but that's who you really are. And just doing it, and letting people do what they need to do without your alterations, I guess. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I'm sending you love and light. Healing begins when we stop asking, what do I need to do to keep them? And start asking, what do I need to do to keep myself? This has been an episode of Drive Thru.